Time to call the Nebraska FBI again.
You have reached the Omaha Division of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. If this is an emergency, hang up now and dial 911. The FBI is warning citizens to be on alert for a phone scam that is targeting individuals while displaying the FBI's telephone number on the recipient's caller ID. The public is reminded that the FBI does not call private citizens requesting money and to never give out unsolicited requests for personal information to callers you do not know. If you are calling to report a possible internet-related crime, please visit the Internet Crime Complaint Center at www.ic3.gov. If you are a member of a law enforcement agency or you are calling to report a bank robbery or a kidnapping, press 2. If you are calling to provide information regarding other federal crimes or suspicious activity, press 3. If you are a member of the media, press 4. To inquire about career opportunities with the FBI, please visit our website.
Hello. Thank you for calling the FBI. This is not a 911 service for taking emergency calls. For emergencies, please call 911.
Si usted desea escuchar este mensaje en español, por favor oprima el número 1.
In a few moments, you will be connected to an operator. This call will be recorded for quality assurance, investigative, or other purposes. If you do not wish to be recorded, please hang up and submit your tip online at tips.fbi.gov. During this call, you will be asked to provide identifying information about yourself and or the persons about whom you are calling. We use this information to assist in investigating your tip.
Jesus,
You do not have to provide your name or other personal information. However, the lack of information may delay or hurt our ability to investigate your tip. Any information you provide may be used for authorized purposes. To report a suspicious email, hacked email, scam,
Jesus
or
fucking
ID
Christ.
theft, press 1. To report a tip about threat to human life, serious bodily injury, or significant violent action, press 2. To report a tip on an FBI fugitive, press. Please provide the zip code of the area you are calling from now. One moment while I transfer you to the next available representative. Your call will now be recorded.
Thank you for calling the FBI. May I have your name, please?
My name is Sean Schwartz.
Sean, how do you spell your name?
SHAWN
What is your date of birth?
October 18th, 1980.
A telephone number for you, please?
Yes, ma'am. One moment. It's on the back of my telephone. It is 308. Uh, 69129. Well, ma'am, I have been attempting to get the FBI to actually do something for over 2 years now. There was a young woman named Natalie Bollinger, who was killed in Colorado in 2017. And originally, I was pegged as her killer. I had been illegally prevented from getting the help that I needed. And ever since Natalie was killed, a year after her and her friends, they're all a bunch of druggies, and they did a lot of really mean things to me for over a year. And even though I was trying to get help, people were blowing me off and treating me like trash, threatening to kill me, telling me to go kill myself for a whole year before Natalie was killed. And police officers wouldn't do anything. Well, then Natalie got shot in the head, and I had been trying to get help for over a year by that point. When Natalie was shot in the head, and they made me out to be some sort of a villain, like I'm disabled, and I collect disability money for it, and I had housing, and those were taken away because Natalie was killed. I was assaulted repeatedly by police officers who refused to take a report from me in between when she was killed and when they found the guy who finally killed her. Um, they didn't find him until February of 2018. In between that time, I was harassed, threatened, and assaulted repeatedly by the general public, by the police, by the homeless, and the police wouldn't do anything about it. They literally wouldn't do a thing about any of the assaults, threats, or any of that that had been going on, and it's been going on until this day. I've been prevented from showing evidence in court. They keep using the term mentally ill as loosely as they can to prevent me from being able to show evidence. And a lot of that is because police officers in multiple states before Natalie was killed, I had tried to go to, and they didn't want to do their jobs. We're paying them to do those jobs, but they're not doing them. And I have been through no end of hell since Natalie was killed. I had my disability money taken away. I was assaulted repeatedly, including by police officers. I was prevented from being allowed to show evidence or speak on my own behalf. I was made a victim by the public repeatedly, and I will be a victim for the rest of my life because I was never allowed to defend myself. I have made hundreds of phone calls to different agencies and all these different places, and it just became a giant mess. They were able to utilize jurisdiction in order to prevent me from being able to show evidence. They destroyed evidence repeatedly, and repeated officers took part in this. I was repeatedly harassed, threatened, and assaulted in the jails. I was prevented from going to my court dates. I was illegally prevented from going to my court dates. I was prevented from going to them because I was incarcerated, and then I was charged with failure to appear for court dates that I couldn't have gone to because I was incarcerated. None of my public pretenders would do their jobs. None of them would do anything to investigate the crimes against me or the torture by the officers in those facilities.
Okay.
It's been over 2 years worth of abuse, ma'am, and literally nobody has been willing to investigate it. Nobody has been willing to look at the evidence. And the officers who took part in this, I had to go to them to try to get help. And instead of helping me, they used the law and abused the law to prevent me from making a report against them.
And you've tried to call the FBI before, is that correct?
Ma'am, I've tried calling every single agency out there. Literally nobody will investigate it. Like, the idea is that if you don't investigate the crimes, that it didn't happen. I have literally been forced to break the law to try to defend myself because I am abused because of my disabilities. I can't make my disabilities go away. No amount of beating on me or charging me with crimes that I didn't commit is going to make autism go away. It isn't a choice.
All right.
I've been forced to live with.
You were incarcerated until they found the correct person that committed the crime. Is that correct?
No, ma'am. I was. No, ma'am. They incarcerated me repeatedly for crimes that I didn't commit, until they found Joseph Michael Lopez, who was the guy that killed her. But in between when Natalie was killed and when they found the guy that killed her, I was assaulted repeatedly by police officers. They refused to give me their names, refused to give me their badge numbers, refused to take any pictures of the evidence of the assaults against me by the officers or by the general public.
Okay.
They lied.
You said you lost your disability because of this?
Yes, ma'am. I literally just got it back. I literally just got my disability money back. My first payment was on the 1st of this month. I literally just got my housing back, but the problem is the amount of abuse that I had to take because I didn't have that housing or that disability money for the last 2.5 years.
Uh-huh.
Police abused their power repeatedly in order to get away with the crimes they committed. Natalie should still be alive. They repeatedly held court dates without me. I literally went to every single court date until, like, literally my public pretenders weren't showing up. They wouldn't do their jobs, and it screwed me, ma'am.
Okay.
Like, they literally weren't even showing up for court.
Okay, so you got a public defender through legal aid because you didn't have the funds to hire an attorney on your own, correct?
Yes, ma'am. And the problem with the legal aid is that public defenders, they get paid whether they win or lose. There's no incentive for them to win. Nearly all of my public defenders told me that they have too many cases and they can't defend every person who comes across their desk. I even had at least one of my public defenders tell me that they basically have to pick and choose based on who's most likely to win, and they have to trade us like baseball cards. Meanwhile, there's a lot of evidence that I have about child molesters and rapists that they just call me mentally ill and refuse to look at it and pretend that it doesn't exist. But I still have that evidence. The problem is getting someone to look at it. Instead, they keep victimizing me for my disabilities. It's like them telling you, all right, well, if you want to make a police report, you have to go up to the 3rd floor, even if you're in a wheelchair. So you got some guy in a wheelchair on the bottom asking people for help going up the stairs, and they're not going to help him. There's no elevator, there's no wheelchair ramp. He has to figure out how to get up 3 flights of stairs with a wheelchair in order to get the help that he needs. And he can't because he's in a wheelchair. And that's what I'm having to deal with, is people taking advantage of my disabilities when it's convenient for them that my disabilities exist. And when it's inconvenient for them, then my disabilities don't exist, and they start talking about my intelligence. I've been fighting hard just to be able to get the names of the officers because they keep refusing me the names of that. I keep trying to get the names of the judges that were involved because there were so many of my. The first things that I forget when I'm severely stressed out like this is names and numbers. You know, I have to write them down. They kept on using Suicide Watch to prevent me from having pencils, to prevent me from writing down what they were doing. This happened in multiple jurisdictions across the state of Nebraska and Colorado. I have a whole bunch of witnesses that the police literally would not listen to. They were busy protecting the wrongdoing of their fellow officers who are all harming me for a crime that I didn't commit. When I was assaulted by Officer Whalen Lolatai in January, that was in between when Natalie died and when they found her killer. I was assaulted by Officer Whalen Lolatai, but because they took away my disability money, because all of it was being spent going to all of the courts for them not to do anything, for them to ignore all crimes against me. Whalen Lolatai, they charged me with felony assault against a police officer. And even though they dropped the charges against me because I was the one assaulted, they kept me tied up in court and made sure that all of my money was spent. I literally had to break the law to try to force law enforcement to take a look.
Shawnee, the cell phone number that you gave me, is that the best number to reach you on?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and document everything you've told me today. And if they have any further questions or they want to speak to you about meeting up with you and talking to you about what may, or, what might happen or, what else information they need.
Ma'am, I've made over 100 phone calls
number.
to the FBI. They've never called me back. Not once ever have they called me back. There's a lot of evidence that I was trying to show them that I knew that they didn't have access to. They said that they already have everything on several of the phone calls that I made. There's no way that they could have. I had 3 telephones full of evidence I was trying to show them for almost the entire last 2 years. And those telephones got stolen.
Okay.
They're full of
I will
evidence.
note that as well.
Yes, ma'am.
And like I said, if they, if they have any questions regarding what you have been through, they would reach out to you on that cell phone, okay? And then they would set up a time to come and speak with you. And then if by chance you don't answer because you don't recognize the number or you don't get to your phone in time, they would leave you a contact number for you to call them back, okay?
Well, ma'am, they literally haven't done that yet. I hope they do that this once. Ma'am, I have been through 2 years of hell.
Okay, well that's not for me to determine. I just take the information, okay,
Yes,
Sean, and
ma'am.
I'll make sure it's documented into the system.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well you have a good night, and I thank you so much for letting us know, and I'll go ahead and get this in for you.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, literally hundreds of people took part in this. Instead of treating me like I'm crazy, I need someone to look at the actual evidence. I have so much evidence. I just need help. I'm overwhelmed.
Okay, well I will make sure that I document this very well for you, okay?
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, you have a good night. Bye-bye.
I'm trying. Good night. I just want the pain to stop. I want to be allowed to show evidence and defend myself. Nobody should have to break the law. Nobody. It doesn't matter if you're disabled or not. It doesn't matter if you're a man, a woman, black, white, yellow. Shit, you could be fucking purple for all I care. You shouldn't have to break the law to defend yourself. You shouldn't just have to take the abuse because the law won't look.